Hey everybody, and welcome to the video. This week we are doing another Q&A. The one I did last month, everyone seemed to really enjoy. I had a couple people asking if I could do this a little more regularly. You guys came through with plenty of questions, so let's just jump right into it. All right, so first question comes from Rafi Azar, and they'd asked, what are your tips for someone wanting to gain muscle after having lost a significant amount of weight? Were you ever scared that bulking up would just make you fat again? This is a great question. It's going to be just about the same as someone who didn't lose weight. So I would just do research, basically regular training and proper nutrition. But yeah, do some research on how to build muscle in general. I know I've talked about this here and there in the past. There's not really going to be much of a difference for someone that has lost weight versus someone that hasn't for building muscle. In the second part of that question, were you ever scared that bulking up would just make you fat again? I don't think scared is the right word for it. I would say I was a little overly concerned. After having lost so much weight, I'm sure you guys can relate to this too. After having lost so much, I feel confident because I know how to take off weight. Adding muscle was a much harder part for me than the weight loss. So I was never really that concerned because if I started to see my weight creep up, I'm very confident I know how to take it back down. The other big thing, a lot of people don't realize, everyone wants to lose weight so they can go right on a bulk. You don't really need a lot of extra food to gain muscle. Realistically, 100 to 200 extra calories a day is going to get you all of the muscle that you want, or all the muscle that you can build through training. A lot of people like to blow that way out and eating 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 calories like some experienced bodybuilders. And if that's your thing, you're probably not asking this question anyway, but that's appropriate for the right person. But for most of us starting off, you don't really need to eat that much more. You can actually, in the beginning stages, build a lot just eating at maintenance. But yeah, so minimizing those extra calories if you are going to go on a bulk is really important to make sure that you're not gaining too much fat. And then also, you need to make the realization that when you're bulking and when you're purposefully gaining weight, you are going to add some fat in there. But you already lost weight once, you know how to do it. It's not anything you should worry about if you were able to successfully get it off once. The few pounds you might gain if you try and go on a bulk and do it properly aren't going to be that big of a deal at the end of it. Next question comes from Katrina Kaluza. She had asked, what's a food you have never gone back to once you lost weight? And is there a food that stayed a constant ever since before you lost weight? A food I've never gone back to. I would say in general, sugary drinks as a whole. I drank almost exclusively juice and soda when I was heavier. And I barely drank any water. It's so crazy to think of now, because if I have like less than a gallon, I feel like I'm dying of thirst these days. So I drink a ton of water now. Even being able to track and fit those calories in for sugary drinks, it just feels like the biggest waste now. So that would probably be my one thing. I don't really have any drinks with sugar too often anymore. And the second part of this, is there food that stayed a constant ever since and before you lost weight? That's a tough one. I can't think of any specific foods. I do treat myself to a lot of the same stuff I used to enjoy when I was heavier. It's just a lot less frequent now. And there were some healthy things I used to really love and enjoy when I was bigger too. So not necessarily anything in particular is coming to mind, to be honest, but everything is fair game for me now. So generally, if there is anything I want, I'm just gonna have it. Next question comes from Last Call. If you had the power to make one food 0 calories, what food would you do that to? Also, what's your dream vacation? I think my answer to this would either be pizza or cookies. I love both of those quite a bit, and they're both very high in calories, at least for most of the good ones. Yeah, I don't know if I can narrow down between those two. I would have to say pizza or cookies. And then the second part, what's your dream vacation? We did kind of touch on this a little bit in the last one. I have a lot of different dream vacations. I've been overdue for a nice, relaxing sort of vacation, and I also feel overdue for more of an adventure, exploring, travel sort of vacation. I do enjoy both, and I feel like both have their place. so many places. I mean, the list is too long to count. Even within the states here, there are so many places I have yet to see and explore, and I haven't been outside North America before, so I just want to travel more in general. Anywhere works for me. Just getting out and about and experiencing new things is my dream. Next question comes from C Rhodes 08. How often do you eat bad foods? Example, fried foods, ice cream, cake. Somewhat regularly. I'd say a couple times a week. It depends a lot of what I'm doing. Usually when I'm really busy and just grinding and working a lot, which is most of the time anymore, I don't really eat out all that often. And I prep most of my foods when I'm busier, so I'm not really eating that much extra junk or anything, but I allow myself to have that whenever I want, like I talked about before. It's just a matter of accounting for it. I've always been a big advocate for trying to figure out your own personal balance with that, because you want to make sure and be healthy and not overdo it and overindulge. But at one point, we do all this work and we put in all this time and effort into improving and bettering our lives. Food is something that is very important to me. Yeah, so it's a big part of my life still. It's not the only part like I think it used to be at times during my heaviest, but yeah, I allow myself to enjoy whatever I want, and I'm always working on that moderation. So far, it's been going really well. Second part, do you do intermittent fasting? If so, what's your schedule, and how do you get through the cravings to eat during the time that you're not supposed to be eating? Talked about this before also. I do intermittent fast. I generally will do a 16-8, where I'm fasting for 16 hours, eating for about 8 hours. I kind of let my body tell me when to break it, though. It's generally around 11 or 12 when I break my fast, and around 7 or 8 when I have dinner for my last meal. And how do I get through the cravings? And that's kind of on purpose. I've tried shorter windows before and struggled with it, and it also caused a little bit of digestive trouble for me, eating so much in such a small window. But the reason that 8-hour eating window works really well for me, I'm generally really busy in the mornings. I wake up at about 5 or 6. I have a few hours of my morning routine and handling stuff for the YouTube channel before I go to work. I start work at around 9, and by the time I am settled in from all of my morning to-dos, it's generally around 11 or 12. So usually I'm so busy, I don't really think about it. It took a while to get to that point when I was first starting off. The big thing, make sure you're staying hydrated. You're allowed to have caffeine, like black coffee or tea, just don't have any calories. Both of those are gonna help. The water will help fill up your stomach. Caffeine can also satiate hunger a little bit. That's what I would recommend if you're having trouble. Next up from Clara Cleric, what are some of the first exercises / activities you recommend for someone who is obese and out of shape? Great question. I always recommend walking for anyone that's starting off and trying to figure out some sort of activity to do. Walking is great. It's easy. It's usually enjoyable. You get to look at some scenery, or if you're on a treadmill, you get to watch TV. There are a lot of benefits to low impact cardio. They call it low impact steady state or low intensity steady state cardio. You can activate, it's called your slow twitch muscles. When you're regularly active as a person, you burn a few more calories compared to someone that really doesn't move at all. Sedentary desk jobs, straight home to the couch in your car. When you have that light activity even, it doesn't have to be anything intense like running or weightlifting or anything crazy like that, but even something as simple as walking can have a lot of metabolic benefits to your body. It's also easier on your joints. It's easy to jump into. You're not going to tax yourself. The other big thing as well, when people start off with their weight loss, they want to do this really heavy, intense cardio. When you do that really high impact cardio, it is going to increase your hunger levels a bit, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can make it a little bit more difficult to stay on track with your calorie goals. You're not going to increase your hunger quite as much. It's going to be a lot less strain and pain on your body if you're suffering from any joint issues, or if you are bigger and have trouble getting around. So that's always what I recommend. Beyond that, any sort of activity that you enjoy. People like to treat exercise like this huge task and burden and chore that they have to get through. It can be hiking, it can be walking, it can be playing sports, it can be cleaning the house, tons of options. So get a little creative as well, but walking is always a great place to start. Next question comes from the Real Snooky. Do you have any tips on growing your own business or financial tips in general? Thanks, been loving your videos and especially your homemade recipes. Thank you so much for saying that. My recipes probably get the least amount of views out of everything I do. I really enjoy making them. I love cooking. I think they're very valuable for anyone trying to lose weight, so that's why I continue to do so. So I appreciate that. So tips for growing your own business. I'm sure a lot of it depends on what business you're trying to grow. For me, trying to work on YouTube, I'm also trying to set up more of a professional videography career these days, and also working on some pro photography work. Be willing to put in the work, be willing to make sacrifices to other hobbies or other things in your life. And it's gonna be a lot harder than you probably think, and it's gonna take a lot more time than you probably think. A lot of the business strategies around social media or otherwise, I learned a lot from Gary Vaynerchuk. I haven't watched much of his content since he switched to his daily V's, but back in the day when I had more time, I was watching a lot more. A lot of what he talks about is literally like this step-by-step guide to how I built up this YouTube channel, to how I built up my Instagram account. So I would definitely recommend check out Gary Vaynerchuk if you haven't already. He's blown up. I've been following since his Wine Library TV days back in like 2008, 2009. But yeah, it's awesome to see him finally getting his credit. Also, I've learned so much from listening to the Tim Ferriss Show podcast. Not necessarily from Tim Ferriss himself, but the people he has on his show. He interviews just people that are successful in whatever they're doing, so kind of the top of their field with anything you can think of. In this internet age, we have access to the inside of so many successful people's minds, and not that you should really stick to any one person's thoughts or ideas or strategies, but if you start listening to more and more people that are successful in what they're doing, you can spot trends and similarities in any field, and that can translate into anything else. And as far as financial tips, try and live frugally, especially if you're working on your own business. I generally like to own nicer things, but I also don't own a lot. I don't spend very frivolously, but when I am buying something that's going to have a big impact on my life, I'm willing to invest into whatever the most ideal option is for me. So you might notice, I have nice camera gear and a lot of that stuff. I don't really go out to eat all too much anymore. I don't really spend very much, beyond groceries and what I need for my business. And the occasional night out with my wife. We live pretty frugally. When we moved up to Portland, we just about downsized our apartment in half. That really forced us to relook at the things that are important to us in our lives. And so we live a pretty minimal lifestyle. We have a small apartment here. You guys have seen the kitchen is over there. This is the living room. We've got a bedroom as well, not just a studio, but this is our whole place. I think people need a lot less than they realize. Downsizing, even for me, that's someone who's always enjoyed having a little bit less, really realized even from a couple of years ago how much less I need to live and be happy and to still feel like I have everything I want. So that's what I would recommend for financial tips. Work hard at trying to make more money and live as frugally as you can while still enjoying your life and not compromising things for your business. All right, the next few questions come from breathing. I'm gonna knock these out one by one, kind of rapid fire. What is your daily calorie intake? About 2,800 to 3,000 calories is pretty much my maintenance now, where I fall on a usual day. It's a lot more than it used to be, just because I'm much more active and do have a little bit more muscle than I did a couple of years ago. Do I have loose skin? Yes, I do. Talked about it before, made a couple of videos. Totally not a big deal. I'll take my loose skin any day over still being overweight. Have you reduced your calorie intake gradually as you lost weight? Yes, you definitely need to do that. The smaller you are, the less calories that you burn naturally. So as you lower your weight, you do need to reduce your calories along with it. Have you stalled during weight loss, and how did you overcome the plateau? Just made a really great video about this a few weeks ago. Be sure to check that out. It covers everything that I've used to break through any plateau I've ever had. How many calories do you burn in a day? Rounding back to my daily calorie intake, about 2,800 to 3,000. All right, next question comes from Ryan Blachowicz. Are you happy with Portland? I am very happy with Portland. I wish I had a little bit more time and a little bit more free money to enjoy myself out in the city more, but I love it here. The scenery is great. The people are really nice, honestly the nicest people in any part of the country I've ever been to. I really couldn't ask for anything different from the city beside having my friends and family here with me. That's the only tough part is pretty much everyone we know lives back in Michigan. So getting used to that, it has its ups and downs depending on the day, but everything about the city is awesome though. Next question comes from Eric Grayson. What things in your life changed after you lost weight that you didn't expect to change? Jordan's my real name, by the way. Well, you shouldn't have put it in the comments if you didn't want me to say it. I remember you saying last time too, you wish you had used your real name. Thank you for the comment and the support, Jordan. But what things in my life had changed that I didn't expect? This could be its own video. Let me know if you actually want this to be into a fuller video. So first thing that comes to mind, a little bit of a goofy one, seats are a lot less comfortable than they used to be. If you have hard seats, it actually puts a lot more pressure on my back and my butt than it used to. That was something that I did not expect. On a little bit of a more serious note though, I never thought I'd be someone that is into weightlifting and going to the gym and bettering themselves and all of that sort of stuff. My whole lifestyle is pretty different. I still have a lot of the same interests that I used to, but I have this whole other avenue of my life that's much more prominent now. My life is very different now compared to what it used to be. I still feel like I have all the same morals and views on things, but I just have this thirst for self-improvement, I guess, and I don't know why that gets such a bad rap with a lot of people, but I know you guys, I'm preaching to the choir here. But that is gonna be it for the questions. You guys all came through so well. Appreciate all the comments and good questions. If you guys do want me to continue to do this on a little more regular basis, like monthly or even every other month, let me know down below. These are fun. It gives me a better look at what you guys are going through or have questions about. It also is, a little bit nice to have a video that I don't have to think through quite as thoroughly in advance. I love making videos, but having to produce something from thought to published every 3 days or so does get a little taxing at times with my full job and everything else outside of YouTube. But be sure to like the video if you did enjoy this. It really helps me a ton, helps the channel grow and more people to see these videos. And be sure to leave me a comment down below. I'm gonna use Jordan's comment. What has changed in your life since you started losing weight that you didn't expect? But that is gonna be it for this week. I'll talk to all you guys on Monday. Have a good one.